So, good morning, everyone who has had a chance to sign in. Um, my name is Snowy Hagan. As most of you know, I'm the Career and Transfer Advisor here at North Florida College. We just wanted to set up something to really introduce you to a really awesome resource that we've been using here for about a year now at NFC that we're trying to gain some traction with some employer relations. So, we've set up a webinar with Michelle and Emily to tell us more about Parker Dewey. We've partnered with Kathy at CareerSource to kind of make things seamless so employers know who to contact to get more information about Parker Dewey. So this is just informative. This will be from an employer standpoint. So this will be a lot of information for employers. I know a lot of us may not be in the traditional employer side, but we can relay this in message to our employers. We've had really great success with a couple students that have used Parker Dewey. One student did a remote job while she was in nursing school. It was a project that was computer based, and we also had a student do a larger project with Madison Fire Rescue, who was actually offered a position afterwards. So we've had a few really great connections made. I think we just need more local employer involvement. So Michelle and Emily are going to give you some more information on that, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. So I will turn it over.
Thank you so much, Snowy. Appreciate it. My name is Emily Kravitz. I'm an employer engagement specialist here at Parker Dewey. I'll be introducing what we do at Parker Dewey as it relates to micro-internships, and we'll talk all about what that means. And these are tools that can help you engage early talent and will be very useful when working with students at North Florida College and with your community employers. So one thing I wanted to note before we get started, like Snowy said, is that this session is very much focused on employers, and we're helping employers make better hiring decisions based on real-time candidate engagement and skills data so that you can build the relationships with the individuals that can be future summer interns or even full-time hires. So we'll spend about 30 minutes or so talking through these topics. But yes, we are recording. Yes, we will share all these slides with you. And then Michelle is here helping me out with any questions that you may post in the chat as well. So appreciate it. So during today, we'll make sure that we're going to cover how companies are able to manage recruiting season with a pipeline of candidates that align to the goals. So to be clear, this is the opposite of some of the stacks of like the one-click applications that you might see on a LinkedIn, but really rather candidates who are actually excited about your opportunities. We'll also talk about how companies are able to attract candidates who would be perfect but are getting missed. And so some of you may have heard about something called the application avalanche. Getting too many applicants for one job, but 70% of them, more than 70% of employers say that it is. You'll see what top employers are doing right now to improve sourcing and selection, and then doing so while spending time without having to spend that time flipping through resumes and hosting endless phone screens. And then also how you're going to strengthen relationships with your campus partners. So huge believers of the relationships that we have with our campus partners. So grateful to North Florida College, the staff, and all that are here today. And you are incredibly valuable to all of us. And then we'll also talk a lot about the data that Parker Dewey can provide and how that is going to be beneficial, especially when you're talking with your senior leadership to get buy-in. And then have great news. We'll talk about how you can work with Parker Dewey to post projects for free, thanks to generous grant funding that we have available. So as a quick background to who Parker Dewey is and what we do, we've been around for 10 years now. So since our founding, we've been 100% focused on creating real experiential recruiting opportunities for employers to engage prospective candidates. And we use a skills-first framework to see them in action. So this experiential recruiting approach is time-tested and proven. We've had 10 years. We've improved it. We've made it accessible for early career hiring. We've removed all the friction and the paperwork and the hassle. So all the micro interns are actually on our book. So we handle all the HR and the behind the scenes processes. And this makes it really easy for you to capture data and then respond to the changing needs. And the platform does capture a ton of data. So like I said, we will walk through that. But let's dig into some of the challenges that we are addressing. So early career recruiting challenges. So we know how difficult early career programs are. We also know that traditional early career hiring isn't working. Nearly 71% of students say that this process doesn't let them demonstrate their skills. About half of early career hires leave their first job within a year. And as a result, hiring managers struggle to assess real ability beyond just the resume or during a short phone screen. The cost of getting it wrong is high. So the cost to hire is definitely rising. And again, those one-click applications that were supposed to address accessibility are now not only making costs higher, but they're making the process more difficult as recruiters are getting inundated with unqualified resumes. And so renegs are also increasing as candidates accept offers, but then they wind up dropping out before start dates. And so, given that the stakes are higher than ever, what can your plan be? Instead of hoping candidates stay, how can you assess fit earlier in the process? Instead of just relying on a static resume, how can you evaluate candidates based on the real work? Micro-internships, they let you assess candidates before making a major hiring investment. So here's a look at some of the data that you can get access to through the Parker Dewey system. And so beyond providing just the platform to connect and hire micro interns, here's an example of what it might look like. So here's an employer that posted projects. We call micro internships we call them projects. And here's what an employer who posted prior to choosing to come to campus to meet more candidates. And so they were able to use this list of students who were engaged before they even came, before they even started recruiting season. They already knew that these students were interested in their organization because they applied to a micro internship that they had posted. So by looking beyond the traditional playbook, companies now can have a pool of candidates who are excited and are now going to be more likely to maybe visit your table at an info session or a career fair, whereas before they may have passed it by because they weren't as familiar with your brand. Moving on to the next layer, please. This also gives you a look at what the application looks like. Our applicants will give responses to short answer questions that you build into the application. And so this what again makes the platform unique. You're able to start seeing content and seeing the effort that a candidate's going to put in when they're applying for the micro internship. And if they took the time to have a thoughtful response, you can start to see the effort that they're willing to make if they come work for you more permanently. You can also see at the bottom of the screen there feedback left by the hiring manager even before you engage them at the event. So they may have completed a micro internship and you can see how they perform before you meet them on campus. You can also kind of get to know candidates by their graduation year, which is another really useful data tool that we have within the system. You can start to reach first and second year students who may be hungry to explore career paths and companies, but maybe are getting turned away by employers that are only able to hire juniors or seniors or even alumni for opportunities. This gives you a chance also to build exposure to younger students and get them excited for your brand before they're ready to move on for more permanent hire with you. And then you can also really use this data to help fulfill last minute requests from hiring managers as well. So, besides it being a great recruiting tool for the recruiting season, and as you're looking to make connections with students in the area, we all have those projects on our to-do list that we say that we're going to fulfill, when busy season is over or when this project wraps up. But I think in reality, we all realize that we never really have a downtime as much as we'd like to. And so bring on a micro intern, have them tackle that project for you, get that project off your list, and then you can move on. You can also see how many projects a student applies to at your organization. And so, in this example, this particular student was actually an engineering major and they kept applying for opportunities in marketing at the organization. And so, this way, a company may have never considered the student because maybe their major didn't match what they initially thought they were looking for. But showing how eager the student was to try out different types of projects other than just what's in their major, the student was able to expand their interest, but also the employer was able to expand their pool of candidates. And then also more data. So I told you our system has lots of options to kind of let you know what students are looking at and help you with your decisions. And so this is also really helpful because you can start to see the feedback on how the student performed. And it's also a great tool for your managers who may be working with micro interns, because if you're finding that, scores were low on, certain aspects, maybe you need to help your managers work, kind of coach your managers on how to better work with younger talent, especially if you're not used to working with interns or you're not working with college students or students that maybe haven't worked in an office setting before. This is a great way for you to understand kind of what's happening in the big picture. And then finally, I think too, knowing that your area is rural and your applicant, your applicant base may be smaller, it's great to know where your students live currently while they're attending school, but also their permanent address. So if you're looking to expand your geographic reach for where students are, you can start to see that the students who apply for your projects, where they're actually located day to day, but also where they live permanently, which is also useful. It also opens up possibilities to find candidates more broadly. So if you're finding that you're getting a lot of applicants for micro-internships from one specific geographic area, maybe the southern part of Florida, for example, you might find that there's a program there that's really attracting students to what you're offering. And so there may be a way to kind of expand your reach to find more students. That was a lot of data. So this is what we call experiential recruiting. It's the intersection of skills-based hiring and employer branding. It helps organizations cut through the noise to reach candidates aligned to their goals. And it also provides insight to skills that improve decision-making. Not just the like go or no go or hire, don't hire decisions, but also those earlier stage decisions that just rely on things like GPA or major, which that doesn't always tell the full story of what a candidate's able to bring to the table. And in this economic environment, it also gives data to not only support your work, but also highlight and showcase it to the other parts of your organization, showing it to senior leadership, why programs like this are valuable. And so how do we do this? Micro-internships. And so we're going to talk all about what that means. So what are micro-internships? So they are short-term paid professional projects that are completed on demand. And so typically we look at an average micro-internship lasting between 10 to 40 hours of work. And so a couple of things that make it unique, it's on demand. So I mentioned before that opportunity to take on a project, get something off your plate. You can bring a student on at any time of year. It does not need to be tied to any sort of recruiting season. It doesn't even need to be tied to when a school's in session. Given that we're getting close to winter break, we've got pools of students at North Florida College that would be very interested in completing projects even during winter break. So it's really easy to get started. And so this is kind of what feeds the platform. And the more projects we have, the more opportunity for students to apply. So you may not think you have a project right now. You may think that you're like, hey, I haven't really thought about micro-internships. I'm already battling, getting approval just for full-time hires. And so just want to show you how easy it is to turn maybe an existing position or a position that you've hired for in the past into a much more consumable micro-internship. So we actually have a whole team at Parker Dewey where their whole job is to work with you to turn your ideas or your job description into project-based work. And so here's an example. We have an entry-level data marketer position. We had one of our employers simply send us a job description that they had recruited for in the past, and our team was able to quickly turn it into 3 projects. They can often turn that around same day or soon thereafter. So it's, again, this isn't something that will take a lot of your time. Let us handle the burden of getting those projects going for you. Here's another example, a junior developer. A couple key points here. So looking at like the AI research project idea, this project emphasized leveraging AI to innovate and improve client solutions, aligning with the team's love for exploring and implementing advanced technologies. So it was easy for us to come up with projects there. We also on our website have a nice template list of different projects under different sort of organizational functional areas. And so you can kind of browse around and take a look at some of our ideas as well. To the skills-based hiring. This is skills-based hiring in action. So you may have heard about skills-based hiring becoming more prevalent as we're starting to think about recruiting earlier talent. And so every step of the way, when you use Parker Dewey, you're getting insights to those skills. So it's not just the technical skills, but also those core skills that really make a difference. And it's not a new step. You're not having to implement an assessment or any other sort of addition to your application process. It's really built into the process from the beginning. So you're getting a preview of skills like grit or a level of interest because these students are taking the time to apply and write thoughtful answers to their application questions. Unlike a phone screen where you don't get, too deep into the candidate's sort of personality and skill set, you're starting to see communication come through right away because you're working with them to complete this project. Unlike a formal interview, you're starting to see problem solving and professionalism from actual work product. So a lot of these micro internships are completed remotely. And so a student is responsible for managing their own time and making sure that they get the project done within the kind of approved framework for amount of hours. These 12 attributes are not easy to see in action with just a traditional phone screen or interview. So, which leads me to the second topic. Why does this even work? And so, this works because it's how students are telling us that they want to be recruited. By listening to the students, companies can spend a lot less time and effort trying to figure out how to encourage students to engage. Almost 100% of students say that this is how they want to be recruited. It's how they want to learn about companies and how they'd like to demonstrate their skills. They want that opportunity to show you what they can do. It also allows you to respond to when they want to be recruited. So, introducing your organization to first or second year students by posting micro internships is so much more effective than trying to change the mind of somebody who has already determined kind of what the right fit opportunity is for them when they're a little bit older. And unlike telling, you may attend a career fair or a community event or some sort of opportunity that brings candidates and employers together. And instead of having to turn away a freshman or sophomore because you're not ready for them yet, this can keep them engaged all along the way and also allow you to see their skills. And also, what does this mean for you? So, micro internships aren't just about fulfilling roles, it's also about building an always on pipeline. Doesn't have to be a one and done. It enhances what you're already doing on campus, but also helps you meet more candidates more broadly. So, you can reach students aligned to your goals, especially those that you may have not otherwise met. It keeps them engaged after you've met them. So, if you are investing your time and going to an event on campus with North Florida College or in the community, you're good, they might come by and chat with you for a few minutes, but this keeps them engaged with you even after that interaction. And it really helps you gain a competitive advantage so that you're choosing the right hires. So here is a couple of examples of some of our employers that have shared with us how Parker Dewey was helpful for them. And so in this situation, this is a large hospital system, one of the preeminent healthcare organizations, and they had two specific challenges that they brought to us. First, there was facing very harsh competition among other systems in the area for allied health roles. And also, they were struggling with driving interest by students, including those not really thinking about healthcare. So, maybe students that were studying business but weren't thinking about a healthcare system as a place in which they could do that type of work. So in this case, this organization chose to bring on a micro intern to serve as a campus ambassador. And so they use that campus ambassador to help drive interest and to then get them into spaces that they couldn't easily get themselves, like classrooms or clubs. And so these are companies that have there are companies out there that do their own formal campus ambassador program, but they can be tough to manage. And so let Parker Dewey handle that for you. Let us handle the administrative burden. And that way the student can get right on campus and start helping you build your brand. And as a result, there was a significant increase in student engagement. And so they were also getting engagement not just from the allied health students, but also from other areas. And this really provided a differentiator for them to get them not just to their career fair booth, but also, discussing real projects and ways to kind of get engaged. And then they also, while this was focused on kind of that before campus visit activities, the same playbook works even if you can't physically be on campus yourself. So what about after the event? So in this situation, this was another employer partner. They're a global medical device company, and they didn't really have a whole lot of campus recruiting effort. They didn't have the staff for it, but they also had a lot of interest in kind of a unique makeup of students. They were looking for kind of student athletes and engineering majors. They were difficult to fill roles. They wanted certain backgrounds and this kind of mix of a major with a student athlete profile. And so when these few students would show up, they didn't want to lose them. And so what we did for them is that we actually created what we call auditions. They could sort of try out the job a little bit. They could show the employer what they could do ahead of time. In this case, it was focused on business development. And so it was crafted to both keep the student engaged, but also to help the hiring manager assess the skills. And so after the event that they had on campus with this small pool of students, they offered them all this opportunity to audition for the role. And as a result, not only was it a success with all the traditional metrics like email open rates and click throughs and actual participation, but they had huge improvements on the metrics for that matter. So, besides keeping the student engaged, they were also able to determine really quickly, within a matter of just a few hours, really, who was the best fit based on the work that they did. And as a result, for that particular class of business development reps, 100% were still at the company a year and a half later, including one who actually won Employer of the Year. Employee of the Year. And really, first year attrition is about 50%, which is something I mentioned earlier in the presentation today. But for sales roles, it tends to be closer to 70 to 80%. So this was a huge win. Plus, the hiring managers were really happy. They didn't, in their words, have to waste their time, so to speak, interviewing the wrong people or bringing on the wrong people and trying them out for a year. And then it ended up, back at ground zero. And so when they hired, they had the confidence, as we'll talk about in the next example. And so this was a national fitness chain with a really strong brand recognition, but a lot of their prospective candidates that were coming to talk to them were more interested in working within the gym setting and not so much in the corporate roles, or they weren't really aware that there was an opportunity there to work on the corporate side. And so as a result, they had a stack of resumes that they were just spending way too many hours trying to filter, to try to find people that are interested in the corporate side versus the franchise gyms. And so what they did was have hiring managers share small tasks. So some of those things I mentioned before about taking things off your own personal list, things like articles that needed to be written or job specs that needed to be updated. And so like the first example, this provided them an always on pool of candidates that were ready to take these projects on when they needed them. And so in one case, an L&D team was learning for best practices for new employee onboarding. And they actually chose two different students to do the project. One was an HR major with a 3.9, and the other was actually a business major from a less prestigious program. And so here's kind of what happened. You can see that both students did the project. The student that had the best practices for new hire onboarding was actually the HR major, and then the business major, kind of from the program that they wouldn't have thought to recruit from, did the other project. You can just sort of see, even looking at this, kind of who sort of won out on this audition. The HR major had some typos, some grammatical errors, things that would have been tough to notice during just a traditional 30-minute phone screen. But the other student demonstrated not only the technical HR skills, but also problem solving. They had great organization, great communication. And by looking at these two deliverables, you can clearly see how this would work well for a hiring manager to be able to evaluate candidates. And so fast forward, the student that was a non-HR major actually got hired for the opportunity. And the hiring manager told us that this is probably somebody that they wouldn't have picked out of a stack of resumes. So a great way for them to audition the right fit. So why do micro-internships work for employers, and why is the reason we built this tool? It's to give you the power to support your recruiting goals. It's a way to gain insight, to get the data that you need and access not just the candidates, but kind of knowing how to better engage, and make the best use out of your very limited time. It's also worth noting and highlighting for companies that have established campus recruiting that this plugs right in. And for those of you on the call that don't have a practice for campus recruiting or have seen your recruiting budgets get cut, or your teams or your staff, this helps you drive success without having to have a whole team behind you that's, moving out to different college campuses across the country. So how do you put this into action? So looking specifically here at North Florida College, we are partnering with the DeLuca Foundation. And so the DeLuca Foundation is very interested in giving back to diverse early talent applicants. And so they are willing to help pay for some of these projects. So if you're interested in getting started with micro internships, you can try out your first couple projects with no cost. And so the DeLuca Foundation actually covers that. And I do have a link at the end of the presentation that will go right to the program for North Florida College, as it's tied to DeLuca. And so you'll see kind of all the nuances, but it's just a great way to get started and try it out and see if it's a good fit for your organization. So it's extremely easy to get started. It's just literally 3 steps. First, you just post your project. And so we have a link to go, again, that goes to North Florida College's Parker Dewey page, and you can just get signed up with an app with an account really easily. We're also happy to walk you through that. So don't feel like you're bothering us or anything like that. If you want us to walk you through how to get started, that's no problem. Think about the tasks that you want to get done. But if you don't have something front of mind or you need help thinking about projects, again, we have a whole team that's happy to work with you. And you can just simply send us over your job descriptions and we can take it from there. The second step, you'll start to get applicants coming your way and you can select who you want. And then bottom line, the work gets done, and it's easy, and I think it sounds overwhelming at first, but I promise you it's really easy once you get going. Okay, so I put a QR code here at the bottom of the screen. This goes directly to North Florida College's page. I'm also very happy to answer any questions over emails. It's really easy to find me. I'm just at emily@parkerdewey.com, just my first name. Or happy to answer questions in the chat right now for anyone that's joining us live. I know sometimes it's hard to be the first one to ask questions. So if you want to email me after, that's totally fine. But that's what I have for today. And Snowy, if you have anything else for me or anything else that we can cover, just let us know.
I think this was really thorough. I appreciate it. I think this was super informative. I'm sure if I run into any questions, I think Kathy has a question. Can the projects be longer than 40 hours?
So we want to make sure we're not getting in, like we want these to be quick projects. So you're not bringing them on for like a 3-month internship per se. But in general, you're going to want to get them done roughly within that time frame. But I also want to remind you that we're not paying the students hourly, we're paying them by the project. So if there's a situation where you estimate that the project is going to take 40 hours, but it winds up taking 46 hours or 37 hours, that's fine. It just depends kind of how the students work. If you're finding that it takes much longer than that, you can also break it into a second project.
Yeah, that's what Madison Fire Rescue did. They hired ours on for a certain amount of videos and posts, and then they realized they wanted to keep that going. So they have reopened that micro internship for another student to keep doing that. So they've just divided it in projects rather than timeframes.
Perfect. Jonathan had a question, the best way to introduce this opportunity to a potential partner. I'm very happy to talk with them. You're welcome to give them my name. Again, emily@parkerdewey.com. We will be sending the slides and the recording. So if they want to give it a watch first, that's also fine. But I'm happy to make it easy to just walk them through how Parker Dewey works and how to get going. It is, I mean, truly, it's easy. We can get a project posted right away. And I will put my email here as well. Yes, absolutely. Nonprofits are eligible. DeLuca also has programs for nonprofits specifically, where you can try out a micro internship for free also. And so, yeah, any type of organization, both for profit and nonprofit, are eligible. And no, the size of the business does not matter. We have entrepreneurs, small businesses, large corporations. I was just talking with an employer yesterday that's with a state park. They're going to be posting a project. And so micro internships fit into all sorts of organization types and sizes. Good questions, though. Okay, I think we got them all out. So thank you all for your time today. Really appreciate North Florida College and Snowy and her team, and for all of you for being here today. Again, we will be sending out the recording of what we covered today, and Michelle and I are happy to answer any other questions that come up from here.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everything's done. Give me one quick second. Let me check and see.